Bang, bang, bang. Wow, great addition, Tim.
Oh, welcome. It is Thursday, February 9th. And I hope you enjoyed the little soundtrack in the beginning. We got a lot to talk about on today's show. Welcome to the Investing Bros live show, where every single day we break down the charts and the news affecting Bitcoin, crypto, stock market, and everything else you need to know so that you can become the best investor possible. We got some headlines this morning that could be spicy, but we got to dive into them. But would we potentially see old Gary Gensler pooping in the cereal again, trying to ban staking in the United States? What would that mean for you and your crypto holdings, and maybe some staking opportunities that you have available? We also are looking at a chart. So last night, in case you have not looked at a chart this morning, we had a good little dip on Bitcoin and other cryptos. Some people wondering, is this the beginning of the dump? We're going to be talking about that and a lot more, because despite the fact that we did dip, we have not broken out of that constriction we've been talking about over the last couple of days. Make sure you stay tuned for the entire show as we cover the TA, the news, and we engage with you guys, the greatest community in all of crypto, for the next hour. We go live every single day. If this is your first time here, 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go ahead, and if you have not already, subscribe to the channel and smash that like button. In case you're wondering, Tim, what you mean, the like button? That's that four-fingered mitten sitting right below the screen you're watching on right now. And the reason I said four-fingered is just look at the width. Look at the width of that palm. Ain't no way that is a five-fingered man that was modeling for that like button. I am joined by my amazing, fantastic co-host who is lacking his background blue lighting.
That's right.
T-Shroom, how are you doing today, aside from the fact that you don't have a blue light behind you? Oh, wow.
I don't know what you're talking about, Tim.
What a save. What a clutch save. How are you doing today, T-Shroom?
Better than I deserve, actually. So I'm switching it up a little bit.
Did you vote on that?
I did.
Chance?
I did.
Yeah.
And so I deserve exactly what I'm getting.
You deserve that, yeah.
Let's check out the quote of the day, Tim, because the theme for today's show is definitely going to be regulation. And our boy, Winston Churchill, has weighed in. He said, if you make 10,000 regulations, you destroy all respect for the law. Tim, what do you think about something like that?
If you say make 10,000 regulations?
If you make 10,000 regulations, you destroy all respect for the law. What do you think?
That's a chewer. Like I think you gotta sit on that one for a second.
Yeah, I've heard similar types of remarks, which is I've heard it used in the cannabis industry before, which is like there's hundreds and hundreds of laws against cannabis, and it was never stopped. So it's like you can pass regulations, but that doesn't mean that you can pass laws, you pass regulations, doesn't mean you're going to actually stop what you're trying to set out to stop. Oftentimes, if something's in that high a demand, you need to create incentives to be able to consume it responsibly. Sticking in the cannabis example, obviously, what we're going to talk about today is the regulation of what could be regulating staking. And people have been doing that for basically since the beginning of the interest rate. Right. And so
you think Winston Churchill is saying that we should get rid of all regulation? I think that's what we can get this to. Winston Churchill, a big fan of decentralized currency.
No, because here's the difference is there's been law. I know you're trying to be funny there. I'm sorry.
It has ruined the moment.
I'm sure plenty of people laughed at that.
Okay.
For a lot, I mean, murder is illegal, and most people don't do it. But drinking alcohol before you're 21 is also illegal, but most people do it. So it's like that's kind of the difference. Is some laws are just there symbolically, and some laws are actually there because there's something everybody believes in.
I don't think that murder has regulation. It's just a law. Don't do that. There's not regulation on that. There's self-defense.
A law is regulation.
Well, but at the same time, I hear what you're saying. But like regulation, what I'm thinking of is more of like things like curtailing how you can get something done.
Gotcha.
Right? That's what. Okay.
Well, a tax is basically a incremental ban. So it's like, you're running a business is technically it's not technically. You could think of it as being incrementally banned to own a hot dog stand because the government is saying you can have that hot dog stand, but you have to give me 30% of the profits. So that's 30% ban on what you're doing. Right now, you can make the argument, but that money's going back to social good and helping keep the streets clean that you're even selling the hot dogs on in the first place. That's a good government, and that is a symbiotic relationship. But unfortunately, a lot of our governments have kind of run away with that responsibility and that power, and now it's more of a ban than it is a transfer into social good.
So what's the difference between a government then? And this is going way longer than I think any of us anticipated. But
Come on, Winston.
I feel like we continue
You're setting
to chase
us off
down.
here.
What's the difference then between the government and the local neighborhood thug who demands money from the store owner, but to keep them safe and to keep the neighborhood, rolling well, keep the other bad gangs away? Pretty much, you're saying the government's just a bigger, badder gang.
Well, the big difference in our country is that we get to choose who that is, theoretically.
I feel like sometimes
at
you
the
get to choose
local and the
gangs.
national level. Yeah.
That is okay. That is way further down the rabbit hole than that should have gone. But I enjoyed it. Hopefully you guys did as well. T-Shroom, what are some other headlines? We're engaged with chat here in just a second, and then jump into our technical analysis. But what are some other headlines? We got actually a good amount of headlines today to cover. We won't go into crazy depth on all of them, but what are some other interesting stories people need to know about today?
Well, we've got some on-chain data that's going to be coming at you fast. And we've also got a couple of deep insights from Arthur Hayes, which he has a great newsletter. I was reading it pretty avidly for a while. And then we've got some updates, potentially bearish updates on XRP that we'll get into. And then we'll hear from the guy who called the Big Short back in the housing crisis.
Michael Burry.
2009. Yeah, it is Michael Burry.
It is Michael
That's
Burry.
correct. And then there's a couple other little things here, like Coinbase's CEO cites rumors that the SEC may ban crypto staking for retail customers. That's the one we're going to dive pretty deep into, as you might expect. As Brian Armstrong may be kind of the canary in the coal mine for crypto staking. Hopefully that's not the case, because that would just make things extremely complicated. But we're going to bring you the details, because that's what we do. We dive deep. We dive deep, and we keep digging.
Listen,
and
put that on a t-shirt. We dive deep.
We dive deep.
Dive very deep.
I like it.
Let's go ahead and engage with chat here, and we'll jump over. We're having fun today. This is very much a fun day.
I know I am.
I'm loving this. Speaking of having fun today, we got that gold and diamond member AMA coming up. So if you guys are gold or diamond members, you're getting a little taste.
That's
a little taste of what that's going to look like.
That's right.
Special shout out, though, to our speaking of our members, three of our members over in our Patreon. Give a shout out to them: Danny G, Tom Wilkes, and Mitch Shaw. Thank you to you guys for supporting us and being a part of the team here. But let's go over to YouTube, and let's look at some of the first commenters of the day. Once again, we got Mr. J coming in first. He is on a streak. Is he going to be able to keep this up for a long time, or is a new rival going to emerge? Right behind him was Mr. Bitcoin, so we definitely have our misters in chat this morning. Yair Navarro is here. Justin Eubanks is here. By the way, he said jumping over here from Army Piper stream. He said to say, "What's up to you guys? Love Piper."
Tight.
Love seeing him, and you're gonna see a lot more of him on this channel. Brian Hoskins is here. Joe Watkins, Cryptex, one of our moderators. Shout out to him. Who else is here? Curtis Rorick, Richard Palicio, maybe. Let me know if that's right, Richard. Palicio. Eric Wallen is here, another one of our members. Crypto Mini Bike, another one of our members. Shout out to them. Mike Play is here. Zager, Grand Roofing Incorporated, Ninja Glock, Rich Q, John Con. I believe John Con, that's another one of our members. Got a lot of members in chat. Love seeing it. Servando Estrada, Alton Henderson. Who else we got? iBlint, Henry C. Hernandez, Adam Delgado, Elo Brown. Let's get a couple more here. Crypto Trades. A Mellow Fellow, DLK, Al Bundles, and we'll go one more. Two more here. Rave Song Records and CBD Suddy.
No Steve Shrum?
I didn't see Steve Shrum.
Steve Shrum.
Oh, Daddy Shrum.
He must be busy. He watches from work, like many of you probably do.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. If I didn't read your name, that does not mean we don't love you guys. It just means it is time to go ahead and jump on over and get into some technical analysis. We will be engaging with chat more, though. So, again, today, just kind of letting you guys know. I'm going to go to my bubbles first. Letting you guys know what to expect. Make sure you guys are asking questions. When I'm talking, T-Shoon's watching chat. When T-Shoon's talking, I'm watching chat. We want to engage and answer your guys' questions to the best of our ability. So make sure you guys put it in there. If you want to bring a super chat in there, we might even interrupt where we are at and answer that super chat. But we're starting off kind of red day today. Mostly red, although Link is up big. And I did a little bit of research on Link this morning. I'm not too sure about all of the details. Actually, I did it on my phone. What was the name of the company? And you guys might say, Tim, why don't you know more about the company? Sorry, I don't have all the knowledge. Starkware. So Chainlink just partnered with Starkware, and Starkware, when I was doing my research, it has an $8 billion valuation. It's one of the biggest scaling solutions out there. So if we're wondering why Chainlink is having some good information happening, good data, whereas everything else is red, it could have to do with that new relationship it has with Starkware. But we'll let you guys, if we find out, we'll let you know if we find out more about that. Let's jump over to Bitcoin, though, and let's kind of just start evaluating what's happening here. So the big thing that is on everybody's brain right now is when they look at the daily chart, they see this candle that just came over. It's funny, on the daily chart, it's really not that big of a deal. Really not that big of a fall we had last night. However, we did break this rising level of support we've been in. Let me go down to the 4-hourly chart so we can see this just a little bit better, because it gets even more... Well, it's changed a little bit since I made this note in my head to talk about this, but this rising level of support we have been in ever since back here in the January 22nd. We broke below that last night and ended up finding support on a level we've talked about with a lot of significance, that 22,500 level. Technically, we did wick down to 22,374, matching some wicks we had back here, beginning this little kind of push with rising support. When I was looking at my notes this morning, we had a red candle. The most recent 4-hourly candle was red at that blue line. So I was like, all right, is this an opportunity? Are we turning this former support into resistance? At the moment, this candle is green. We have a wick above. I'll zoom in very nicely for you guys so you guys can see that. It's going to be very interesting to watch when we close this candle. Do we close back above this blue line? And was this drop just a little bit of a fake out? Or are we turning this blue line back into resistance? That is the question, but let's address something else. Now, the whole reason I'm talking about this drop that we had last night, we've been talking about on this channel, and I've seen lots of other channels discussing the concept of, is Bitcoin about to rally up to 25,000, maybe even higher? You know, here we've talked about the potential of even all the way up towards 28,000, or are we about to dump back down towards 20, maybe even lower? That is the question everyone's asking. And so when this dip was happening last night, I can only assume that a lot of people were really kind of wondering and thinking, is this the dip coming? Are we actually moving more bearish? And that would make a little sense. I'm going to explain this a couple different ways. Let's go back to my chart real quick. Daily chart. This would make a lot of sense for us to have a good dip. And I'm going to show you why. You guys can just look at this little curve. This momentum definitely ran out, and it kind of looks eerily similar to some things we've seen recently. Let's go look like this right here. We had a nice little rally coming here starting in September into October, and then we got a little momentum slowed down. We made one more good push, but then we ended up dipping back down. Of course, that did have FTX news kind of bringing in the FUD to help that one, but it's not the, even last time more recently. Kind of got lost our momentum right back here in August, curled over, went to the downside. We move up. We started making a little bit of push. Long story short, you see several times in history, yes, sometimes there's blow off tops when we reverse, but a lot of times you start to see this kind of rounding effect happen. Yes, that's exactly what we see happening here. And I want to show you guys something that I'm looking at when I looked at previous bear markets, because I've done this before in past streams. I've kind of compared what this bear market looks like, and if we do assume that this is the bottom, which again, is that 100%? Not necessarily, but there's a lot of evidence saying that this bottom in November could be the bottom even if we come back down. Let's go take a look at previous bear markets and see what they are saying about this. So again, if what I'm thinking is true, we're kind of sitting in this range right here. Like if we were to be matching what happened in the bear market of 2017, 2018 into the bull market of starting in 2019, despite the fact that pandemic kind of put a little bit of brakes on the bull market there, but I don't really count that because that was Black Swan event. Could we be sitting in a spot similar like what we were sitting in May back in May of 2019? If we were, you see a little bit of a curl off. Let's go right here. I'll kind of compare. We'll start with this little peak we had in on the 14th of May. We had a dip back down to former resistance, turn in support of 22%. If you were to go to this little rounding right here, are we comparing to this one? We had a little dip, didn't get all the way back down to that support line, but we had a little 17% dip. So if we are matching this bear market, are we doing a dip similar to that? If you guys are wondering, Tim, what are you talking about with this former support line? Look at this. This was the last level of resistance before the big drop to the eventual bottom of the bear market. It was used back here once, twice, 3 times to be turned into support. Yes, we ended up breaking it with that black swan event, the pandemic, but that does not count. That is an anomaly, not a fact. Going back to where we are currently, that line, and this is one of the reasons I've talked about it, I've talked about the yellow zone. That's what happens when you mix words here. This yellow zone is what I'm looking at for a bearish push, a bearish pullback. I'm looking at that zone somewhere in there, more likely 21.5 being that last level of resistance before the big drop to the bottom back here in November, sitting right there at 21,500. So could we do that? Could we have a little bit of pullback? By the way, guess how far that would be? This would be a 11% dip. If we were to go 20, like we were to go and match, we're talking about coming down all the way into this green zone, down towards 19.5. We've talked about 19.5, 19.7 zone a little bit. So very interesting. Are we going to match the percentages and come all the way back? Are we going to match the trend of going back to former support? Former resistance, turn it into support. So that's going to be something to keep your eyes on. But either way, that's what I'm looking at. We kind of had a similar thing going on with the bear market even before that. Got to get to it. Same thing, blow off top. So I'm not necessarily counting that one, but could we be sitting in a spot like what we had in December of 2015? You guys can see this little rounded top pulled back down here, and we pulled, let's see, I think this is going to be just about 20% or close to it as well, 26%. Obviously, that's a little bit larger, but you get the point. These things happen. It does not mean that the bull market's not happening. Bull markets have reversals that come back down to set higher lows. So even as we're looking at this dip right now and saying, all right, is it possible, get to back where we are, is it possible we pull back? Even if we were to pull back, let's say here to 21.5 or go lower, 19.5, that's still higher than the local bottom at 15,400. And that is still a higher low. That was kind of just, I wanted to kind of get the narrative out of the way of like, hey, if we dip down, those are price levels you guys should still be expecting right there. 21.5, this yellow zone is going to be hard to get through it. And we'll talk about some news as to why that might be hard to get through it. But if we do get pretty bearish, watch this green zone between 19.7 and maybe down here towards 18.7 be one to be triggered right there. Getting below that green zone, yes, technically speaking, there is some support here. But that's when I'm starting to get back in the camp of saying, all right, we might be setting a new low if we come back down into the blue. As long as we stay above it, though, I still think we're setting higher highs, higher lows, and just it's going to take a while in the market. But let's cover why I am not necessarily too worried just yet, and I still think there's a push to the upside despite the fact that we dipped last night. And to do that, we got to pull up our Bollinger Bands and take a look at what's happening here. Now, again, I've been talking about this for the last couple of days. Everything seems to be constricting. This is the Bollinger Bands right here. If I move over to my chart prime screen, you guys are seeing the chart prime. Ooh, come on now, don't get crazy on me. The chart prime, these are the reversal zones. They're still constricted on the daily chart. We got a while to go for the daily chart to get crazy constricted. I don't know why that just went away. Let's go down to the 4-hourly chart. It's going to show me a little more. Bollinger Bands, look at how constricted those still are. I don't know what's happening, T-Shroom. It's taken forever to load things. There we go. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Boom. There we go. Look at this. This is chart prime. Yes, we dipped down. Yes, we came down to that dynamic reactor. Yes, we're sitting on the green reversal zone here on the 4-hourly chart. But did we see this flinch? Are we seeing this kind of open up and starting to broaden out? No. You see this happen all the time when you're getting into constricted zones where it'll be at the top of the level, it'll shift down to the bottom just to kind of confirm that this is a nice little zone, a nice little pocket, and then the breakout comes later. Sometimes what you end up seeing is now that we're sitting on support, that could give more weight to the breakout being to the upside, both from a Bollinger Band perspective and from chart prime perspective. So keep your eyes on what's happening there. This breakout has not yet happened. You're going to see the same breakout kind of constriction happening on Ethereum. We got the Bollinger Bands constricting. We're seeing this happen on ADA. It continues to constrict. So I am not that concerned about last night's dip the way I think a lot of other people are, because when I come back to the charts, Nothing has changed at this point. And I prepared you guys. I said, hey, listen, we've been hovering now for a couple of weeks in this little pocket between this red zone, this orange zone, and all we did was come back down to kind of kiss, and we dipped a little toe into this orange zone, but we're still utilizing it as support. And as you can see, very quickly jumped back up. At the time of we're making this show, I don't know what if people are watching this later, we're hovering right at that level of support, potentially going to be reclaiming it and using it again. So again, for Bitcoin, I'm just not necessarily that concerned. I do want to prepare you guys. Let's go over to Chart Prime. I want to prepare you though for a bearish scenario. There is still a chance that we're bearish. Yes, we're sitting at a support level. Yes, we're sitting at dynamic reactor. Yes, when you're looking at these predictive zones, these are these lines here. The purple is the most extremes. Red and green are kind of like, hey, you're getting away, but they're still there. And then the price really, really wants to be between the gold. We're sitting on the bottom. There could be a little push to the upside there. But when I go over to my daily chart, this is where it's a little less confirming and bullish, and that is because we just recently bounced off of our premium. We bounced off that top orange line, but our equilibrium and discount prices are still well below us. Some traders are going to be looking at this and saying, all right, we still have a little bit to go before our reversal zones kind of get more constricted. So maybe potentially could we see Bitcoin and others make its way back down towards equilibrium as we continue to see these zones kind of constrict right here for a breakout coming later. And then we see the price, and let's see, I gotta redo this because I should have drawn those zones first. Do we see the price maybe make its way down towards equilibrium and then get to a breakout spot right here before then we see a breakout coming? That's absolutely possible. That equilibrium zone, by the way, is sitting between 20,300 and it could go as low as 19.3. The dynamic reactor, which is green now for the first time in, I believe, over a year. I think I talked about this yesterday. Well, we had a little flash back in March of 2022, but as a whole, we've been red for a very long time. That is also hovering down there towards 19,500. So could we see these things kind of shift, especially as our support levels come up? Could we see that dynamic reactor kind of come up to meet us, maybe closer towards 20,000, the higher 20,000s? Absolutely. Is this even going to happen? I'm not guaranteeing you. I'm just showing you a hypothetical price action possibility. It's the only thing I'm looking at right now that I'm a little concerned. Also, this just like one of the cool things about this indicator, it gives you support and resistance levels to keep your eyes on. Well, guess what? This little green line has been moving up. That's another great support line. As long as we stay above that, we're still setting higher lows. But it's, it says we could fall all the way down here towards 18,300. I told you for other reasons I would not like to see an 18,300. I think that could bring in some even more bearish pressure, but it is something to keep your eyes on. I don't want to lie to you guys or hide truths or say like, hey, everything's looking bullish, just go ahead and buy in. I want you guys to see the chart in its entirety. Let's take a look at some indicators here. The last signal we got on the daily chart with the last thing we got with the oscillator from Chart Prime was an overbought signal, although we are making our way back down. So that was a good call. That overbought came in. Yes, we made one more good push, but it was getting really close into that premium zone. When you go and do some back analysis, perfection is never the word that anything should ever be used in technical analysis. Perfection is not it. It's about probability. And I'm telling you right now, you should never just trade based off of one signal ever, but these have been very good signals. And I might even make some content for some of our members, maybe we're in Discord, and just say, let's pretend I bought $1 every single time we got an oversold flash, and I sold $1 every single time we got an overbought flash. What would my portfolio look like? So you guys can see just a hypothetical scenario going on there. Moving down to the 4-hourly chart, though, let's see what's happening down here. Our RSI definitely is not yet to 30, but it's getting more on the side of being oversold, and we did have an oversold signal kind of flashback in here just a couple of days ago, and right now we're sitting low again with the green triangle coming back in. That's not necessarily saying we have to do it, but the 4-hourly chart is looking a little more bullish. Could we at least push back up to this premium zone here towards 24,000? It is going to be very interesting to watch what happens there. What time do we got, T-Stream? My clock
9:23.
All right, let me see if it was there news. We had some news stories. Another thing I told you is it's not just about the charts; it's about the news. Let's talk about what we have going on with Arthur Hayes and then the Bitcoin supply. I want to show the Bitcoin supply, and then I'm going to throw it over to you for Arthur Hayes. This story is very bullish. So data, Bitcoin supply on exchange is lowest in 4 years.
Your laptop's messing up.
Yeah.
Which one was it?
Yeah, this is the data Bitcoin supply on exchanges.
Okay, I can show that. I've got that.
Yeah. Sorry about the technical difficulties. Also, I don't know if they can hear it. Beamer, fan favorite out there, he's crying at the door. He wants to come in, but he might unplug cords accidentally, so he cannot come in.
We're trying to get there, but it's going to be unfortunately his little paws and his little brain doesn't understand the risk of stepping on cords.
Yeah.
But back to the crypto news, Bitcoin supply on exchange lowest in 4 years, a bullish sign for the asset. So there is definitely some details here that we wanted to highlight, and that's going to be 29.2 billion worth of Bitcoin is left on exchanges now. And for our veterans of crypto, that should come on welcome ears. That's a pretty bullish thing. Just if you're looking at it black and white, that can be interpreted as bullish. The chart below shows the trend in Bitcoin supply on exchange and the supply outside these platforms over the last year. So going back here, it is kind of hard to see, but that's February of 2022. So since then, there has just been more and more going off exchange. So supply outside of exchanges has been going up and up and up. And Tim, you explain it pretty well. I like to hear when you explain it. Why would it be bullish that folks are taking money off of exchange?
Yeah, I mean, so this is ultimately, I'm going to start with the simplicity. And if you don't understand all the complexity things that happen here, this is all you need to know. When people are taking money off of exchanges and putting them into cold wallets, which is what this kind of mentioning here, they're getting it out of a place where they can sell it, do anything with it. That is very bullish. Usually price responds up. When you see money flowing back onto exchanges, usually price goes down. The reason for that is the move of taking your money off of an exchange is kind of communicating to the rest of the market, I do not want to sell. I'm putting this in hodl mode, in hold mode. I'm going to just sit here and wait for profits to come. When you're ready for profits to come and you're going to sell, that's when the user will take their Bitcoin and they'll put it back on exchanges. Yep. And now they can go ahead and look for the right price and sell it. So this is very bullish news, especially as we're kind of talking about, hey, are we going to see the bottom come in the future? Is it already in? Moves like this, again, not 100%. It's not a guarantee. You almost never can say anything with 100% certainty. But this is another big move towards that prediction of saying, hey, we might have another dip in us, but the bottom is in. Even the whales, even the long-term holders agree. We're seeing at an all-time high of money coming off of exchanges. That means people do not want to sell and take profit at these levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Arthur Hayes article also beckons our attention, so we'll jump over to that as well. And some of the stuff that you can see there. So he says Arthur Hayes is betting on Bitcoin and altcoin surge in H1 2023 as he buys Bitcoin. Now, H1, I never heard of this. What is this? Well, this is something that Arthur Hayes talks about. I guess it's a coin he's phrasing. It's similar. This is going to blow your mind, guys, how complicated this is. It's similar to Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, but it's H1, which is half one, the first half of the year. So Arthur Hayes making history there with breaking the years into halves. But no, he does have some good insights. He brings more to the table than just that kind of thing. So he says, my concerns about this potential outcome, which I handicap, would most likely happen later in 2023. It has led me to keep my spare capital in money market funds and short-dated U.S. Treasury bills, he explained. As such, the portion of my liquid capital that I intend to eventually use to purchase crypto is missing out on the monster rally we're seeing off the local lows. Bitcoin has rallied close to 50% from the 16,000 lows we saw around the FTX fallout. Hayes continued that Bitcoin is likely far from done with its rebound despite 40% gains in January alone, comparing the risk asset environment to 2009 and the start of quantitative easing from the Fed. So that's kind of Arthur Hayes' take, and I don't think that there was too much more other than just these details, which is I'll deploy over the coming days, which this was published today, so I'll be deploying over the coming days. I wish my size actually mattered, but it doesn't. So a little joke there. So please don't think about that when it happens. It will have it will have any discernible effect on the price of the orange coin, he told readers. So don't expect much from him buying in, but he's thinking about it, and he's more likely to do it than not. And then he also shed some light on altcoins here. The key to crap coins is understanding that they go up and down in waves. First, the crypto reverse asset rally, that is Bitcoin and Ether. The rally in these stalwarts eventually stalls, and then prices fall slightly. At that time, the crapcoin complex stages an aggressive rally when crapcoin rediscovers gravity and interest shifts back into ether and Bitcoin, and this stair-stepping process continues until the secular bull market ends. So overall, Arthur Hayes kind of saying some things that, again, crypto veterans would probably already know. But the big thing to note here is that he's actually thinking of being a buyer. And if you read his newsletter, which I encourage you to do so, it's pretty wordy, but it is funny. He has a very dry, sarcastic sense of humor, like some of us on this show. And you would enjoy it. Very insightful. And he was the CEO of BitMEX. If you're wondering why we're even paying attention to him, he used to be the CEO of BitMEX, which was one of the biggest crypto exchanges in the history of crypto. So definitely somebody that we like to pay attention to, and he's thinking of getting into Bitcoin, thinking that these lows are not lows that he wants to miss out on altogether.
Yeah, man, that's good. Here's what I will say. I think long term, hearing people like Arthur Hayes kind of turn bullish on Bitcoin, it's good. It is very good. This is something I've not discussed in a while, and I know that there's a lot of complexity here, and some of this might make you guys feel like, hey, Tim, how do we ever know when things can go up or down? There's just so many factors, and unfortunately, that's part of trading. Anything that's just too easy to understand, it's just simple, there's a reason why it's too simple. It's not going to be that valuable. When you can break down complexity of thoughts and different factors, that's when, hey, there's some money to be made there. My point here is we're looking at the charts, and obviously charts, there's so much data, and so much things you have to look at to say, all right, does this mean good? Does this mean bad? Does this mean we're going up? Does this mean we're going down? The same thing happens when you come to news. And stories like this, I'm long-term bullish because I like the fact that I see people who have been kind of hesitant. I like seeing them change their tune. The problem is, though, is that this was heavily reported, and this is big news. And what we know from teachings like Wyckoff, and we don't talk about Wyckoff that frequently, but Wyckoff taught a lot of different things, and one of the things he said to look out for is news headlines with blank FOMO and FUD with no real backing beneath them. Because a lot of times you're going to see the market when there's a lot of hopium flushed in, whether it's manipulation or whether it is just people popping up their opinions. A lot of times the whales and a lot of times the investors that understand the space and have the power to manipulate, they kind of feed on this. If they feel the momentum and the feelings of the retail investor starting to slip in one direction, like that fear and greed index, when they see the price flashing towards greed and you see stories of people making bullish predictions on things, Wyckoff teaches that you really should be skeptical of that, and a dip could be coming from the composite man, which is like all of the big whales and big investors kind of understanding that process, that game together, and manipulating the market back down so they can get a better buy spot. So as good as this story is, as great as every time we talk about good news, I do want to remind all of you, always come into news stories with a little bit of skepticism. Is this a good story because this is actually bullish data? Like, for example, when we get good prints from the Fed, when we get good inflation numbers, when we get good job reports, when we get the remarks from Jerome Powell that he's more dovish, those are all good stories, factual stories with bullish data that should result in bullish actions. But when we get stories like CEO of blah, 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 great company, is now super bullish on Bitcoin, banker JP Morgan is flipping his tune and he's now buying Bitcoin, those are the type of FOMO stories that potentially actually be coming out at peaks and a dip is coming next. Sometimes I see those stories and the price continues to move to the upside. It is a little bit of a headache, but I want to make sure you guys are prepared for that. Don't get sucked into FOMO or sucked out by FUD just because you see a bunch of bullish or bearish headlines like this. Long term, very good story. Short term, I'm actually putting that story in the camp of, could this dip we get next be to the downside? As we see people starting to flip and say, oh, I think we can keep going to the upside. I'm like, ugh. That's opinions. You're changing the narrative. You're changing the opinions of the retail investors. Could that be a trap? I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. And that's why you want to be attentive. That's why you want to be attentive to the charts. Speaking of bullishness on the charts, I've got something bullish. We'll slip into our market open here for the New York Stock Exchange. And that is going to start off with not even anywhere near New York. This is from London. And notice this is priced in Great British pounds. And I'll show you the difference here. But the FTSE 100 is reached an all-time high. I did confirm this with the interwebs, even though this only goes back to 2014. But the FTSE 100, which is it's the equivalent of the Dow Jones for London, for the UK, all-time high, guys. So pretty impressive there. That, you can interpret that for what it will. what you will, but let's look at it priced in United States dollars, and we get a little bit of a different picture. So still putting in a high here, but it's not even a higher high compared to what was put in early February. Of 2022. Yes. So I did get that right. So, all right. Well, that's a little bit of a fun, random, but interesting little bit there for you to munch on. Let's go ahead and get into our energy. We'll just start there because that's usually very, very important for inflation. Natural gas ticking up a little bit, and then oil selling off a little bit. Nothing too crazy there to see as energy kind of trades sideways for the most part. Indexes looking green on the screen. That is good. And the NASDAQ is plunging forward most aggressively. This has me licking my chops to get down to that big tech, the mega cap tech stocks down below. But let's take our morning stroll here through crypto, seeing much more red, but definitely seeing some upside for Matic there, up 2.6%. XRP up 1%, and Cake, taking a nice little sell-off here, down 5.3% in the morning. And our metals green across the board, gold and silver both green here, and then also steel's green. But we'll skip right on past that and get into the green on the screen. That is the mega cap tech stocks. We got the foreshadowing of it from the NASDAQ, and here it is, guys. Everything is green but Google. And that's probably a continuation of this AI battle saga that has suddenly popped up as February has come upon us, and even in late January. And now Microsoft green, up almost 2%, up 1.75%, and Google down almost by the same amount. But your winner today from the mega cap, at least on this list, is Tesla. Tesla coming in pretty hot, up 2.8%. And I'm on the monthly charts, which isn't very helpful. So let me get back down to the daily charts. And as you can see here, guys, Tesla is absolutely making a run for its 200-day moving average there on the daily charts, and it is making it in short order here. You goodness gracious, look at this. This looks like a biotech stock or something like that. The way that this is just careened 100% in a very, very short amount of time. This is since early January 9th. It has come up 105%, and that is Tesla. That's not Atom. That's not Polygon. That's Tesla Motor Company.
What you got, Tim? We covered this though. I always hate. I would prefer to point out every time we get something wrong. Yeah. Than I like saying we got this right. Mm-hmm. When we were down that low, those of you who've been watching, we talked about this, and I said, listen, I don't even need the charts for this. Elon is not dumb. Yes, the price is dropping because a lot of stuff going on with Twitter. People are really concerned here. And I'm like, I remember saying it's like, do you think that Elon is not in full control of what happens? I mean, the dude says the word Dogecoin and it pumps like 30% in like the first hour. The man knows what he's doing. Like it or hate it, he has control of the markets. It's not because he tried to. It's just people respond to when he speaks, when he does things. And I said Tesla is not in trouble. He can just say one word, two words, and reverse these things completely. I think Tesla's a good buy spot. You get out. Pretty much, it popped off just because of that. Elon has been saying things. He's been reassuring the stockholders. He's been reassuring the board. And sure enough, we're seeing it go back up. I still think Tesla is a very valuable, very, very valuable stock to have. Mm-hmm. And again, I don't love saying it because I just hate it. But this is we called this. We said that this was going to be a good little chart to kind of watch and take some profit on. Yeah,
and Army Piper's friend Stefan he bought pretty much the bottom, and I called him out on Twitter for it, and he was appreciative. That's really good. It's hard to do. It's hard to call the bottom. It's hard to buy he not only called it, he bought it, which is great. Mm-hmm. So let's keep moving though. Let's look at our bond yields here are mostly lower. The 2-year is up 0.3%. And then the Dixie, kind of big key here. Dixie is pushing against some resistance here and failing to break through. So that is a good sign for risk assets, probably why your indices are in the green this morning, because the Dixie is getting a nice strong rejection and moving to the downside, currently trading at 102.68. And by trading, I do not mean trading. It's a strength index, so it's not really getting traded. It is a trickle-down indicator. So let's keep looking, though. Cannabis, pretty red across the board. CGC selling off. mid-cap tech stocks. The one that's most interesting to me is C3.ai, and it is trading sideways this morning. So maybe finding a level of support that it wants to stay at here after this giant move to the upside, as everybody's been freaking out about ChatGPT, up 207% up to its wick, from $10 up to almost $31, and now it's come back down to basically $26 is where it's trading at this morning in the New York Stock Exchange. And man, it's still up 159%. And so C3.ai has been around for a while. They're kind of an enterprise AI solutions for companies that are looking to integrate AI into their company, into their business systems. And hey, why not? They've been getting a lot of traction. They have a ton of clients, but they're one of those companies. And the difference with stocks is that they're not always in profit. And this company most certainly is not in profit. So it's still running in negative, but you buy it for the promise. Just like, we're familiar with that in crypto, especially in the gaming world and the NFT world and the, most parts of crypto other than, the big caps that are, they're currencies. So they're not in profit or whatever. But on the stock side, there's a lot of promise in C3.ai because a lot of folks view it as potentially the future, and it could maybe get up to the size of Microsoft or something like that. So we'll see, but a lot of interest in that. Coinbase down 4.6%. Let's take a look at that chart really quickly. Ooh, we've got a lot of scribbles here. And it's actually following one of my scribbles here. So I'll leave that scribble there for you to watch. But yeah, ever since I think I bought it around here, and so it's come back down, and I was looking to buy back in here to DCA at around 63, maybe 62.25. So somewhere in there as it's trailing back toward and regressing back to its 200-day moving average there. So that's nice to see. But overall, you're seeing, of this list, you're seeing a mixed market. Some mid-cap stocks are getting bought, some are not. And then your oil producers are pretty red, other than ExxonMobil, which I think is up on earnings, not sure. So that's going to round out. Pretty nicely our market open here. Let me just scroll right back up. Yep, our indices are still green, and NASDAQ is still leading. But let's go ahead and get into some more of these stories, guys. And we'll start with millions of XRPs on the move. What are whales up to? This is the headline here. There's a lot to look at on this screen. Sorry about that, but that's You Today. That's youtoday.com. They love to have all kinds of different crazy things to look at on their website. They didn't
invest heavily in a programmer for their website design.
I think they did. But they overpowered the marketing guy, because you see anyway. All right, let's keep moving.
We'll keep going.
Over the past 24 hours, 3 major XRP movements were observed, with the first being 35 million units of digital currency sent from an unknown wallet to Bitstamp exchange. So what did we talk about earlier? What did Tim reveal? Is that when money moves onto exchange, it's not usually a good sign. It means someone has intent to engage with the exchange. Now, they could be they just want to stake on that exchange. They may want to stake. They may want to buy mint an NFT. They may want to do something, right? But more than likely, they're looking to sell, looking for an exit out of, in this case, XRP. So not a great sign here, and this is the bearish news for XRP, and that's about it. Whale Alerts brought this to the attention of You Today, which is and then got our attention, and now we're bringing it to your attention. Look, there's an ad for Charts Prime. It's almost like we've been clicking on Charts Prime quite a bit, checking out their product. Definitely really good. Let's see what their ad says. Intelligent tools for serious traders. You believe that, Tim? You think that's what the ad, think it's accurate?
Yeah.
So do I. Yeah. So do I. So that's going to be a pretty good story. Well, not a good story there if you're a big holder of XRP, but that's
here's the thing.
Continue to develop.
So the article kind of talks about there's nothing that guarantees, and I talked about probabilities of this. When you see money come back on exchanges, that money doesn't have to be sold. People can bring them on exchanges, preparing for a sell button, and decide, you know what, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
What we're seeing happen right now, it's very crazy that's happening, because guess what is up on the mend right now? Go to my chart. Yep. No other. I don't see any other coin with this big of a 4-hour candle right now, except for XRP.
Yeah.
So is this story just moot altogether? I think mute would be the wrong word. It's just moot. MOOT, or is it still?
I don't know how to spell it. I just know it's moot, not mute.
Yeah, with ChatGPT and everything else these days, we don't need to really know words that well.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we don't even need to get out of bed.
Is that story moot? Is this a one good rally before we end up getting cut back down from stories like this? Is part of this rally coming up because they want to go make one more good push to take some profit? I don't know. It is just a story. Traditionally, when you see a story like this and you see $14 million on one exchange moved from a cold wall onto exchange, in no world should that ever be a bullish story. If at best it's like a neutral, this doesn't affect anything kind of story.
Yeah. Magic Internet Money said in the chat, my ripples are tingling. That's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good to see you, Magic Internet Money.
Love seeing him in chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got another story here from none other than Michael Burry. You'll know that Michael Burry was famous for calling the 2009 housing crisis. He basically did, if you saw the movie The Big Short, which if you haven't, goodness gracious, go, get your group of investing friends together and go watch that. Man, it's such a good movie. And good insights into financial markets. But he's tweeted out a tweet that says, "This time it's different," which, first of all, we should note that he was off Twitter for a long time. Now he's back on. I haven't really been tracking exactly why that is, but that's something to note just off the rip, that Michael Burry is back on Twitter. And my screen is not cooperating with me. Man, so I will go ahead and just read. But basically...
Can you go to sharing my screen?
Yeah. I mean, there's not a ton to see. It's more just, kind of speculation of like why exactly... what that tweet meant. I mean, so the graph that he posts offered to Barry for public viewing shows a comparison of the effective federal funds rate in the S&P 500 index in 2021 and 2022. It can be seen that the decline in the effective interest rate index is paralleled by a decline in the stock market index. Thus, Barry makes it clear that when the U.S. Federal Reserve begins to pivot its monetary policy, one should not expect financial markets and cryptocurrencies in particular to rise in the medium term. So, what that could be interpreted as is, while it would rise in the medium term, it could have super short-term rallies, and then also in the long term, it more than likely would have a rally. Not even a rally, it would move into a bull cycle at that point, post pivot. So what we found out is that in the medium term, the market, specifically Wall Street, it responds bearishly to a pivot. Mm-hmm. That's just what history tells us. I don't fully understand the trade psychology of that, but it does. And then in the long term, once those prices find a floor, it makes sense that it's testing lower to try to find a floor after the pivot. It's like fresh data. We're now entering in a new environment. Let's see what the floor is. I guess that makes sense of a trading psychology standpoint. Also factoring in how the bond market works in tandem with the stock market over months, finds the bottom and then can go higher. So that's kind of what Barry's pointing out.
Yeah, and here's the thing. He's getting into detail of stuff we've already heard about. Is that concept of historically, when a pivot does come, yes, traditionally the stock market ends up crashing. Is that going to affect the crypto market? We've never seen it happen like that before, so we don't know. But here's something we could think about. And tell me if you can see my screen now. All right, let's just kind of think about. Actually, let's go to this chart. That way, it's less chaotic here. Let's go to the daily chart and talk about what we could see happen. First of all, a pivot. When you're looking at the data of what these pivots are that bring crashes to the stock market, it is not when the Fed stops raising interest rates. It is not when the Fed starts saying, you know what, I think we're getting this under control. It's not when the Fed pivots from being hawkish to dovish. It's when we actually cut interest rates. Guess what? We're not about to cut interest rates. More realistically, we might not be able to cut them until later in 2023, if not 2024. Historically, a lot of these pullbacks can be anywhere between 28 to 50% pullbacks in the stock market. Crypto doesn't have to be that severe. But what I want to show you, hypothetically, I guess I need to go to the weekly chart for this. Let's pretend that Bitcoin continues to rally up here. Yes, the interest rates aren't being cut, but we just start to make our little way. We're going lower, hitting lows, but getting higher highs, doing this. We end up making our way, long story short, we get to, I'm way out of control here. This is going to have to be more like this. Let's say we get here to the end of 2023 and we make it up towards $31,000, $40,000, maybe in that range. And then we get our pivot, we get our cut, and now we get our 30% pullback. Guess what? That happens all the time during bull markets. Like even right here, I remember this was my first bull market getting to just watch and operate with everything. But during this little rally, I remember sitting there in January of 2021, and people thought we had peaked out right here, and there was a big pullback. Let's look at the percentage. I believe it's 30-something percent. We pulled back, 31%. People thought this was the top of the market. My point for saying all this, you might be like, Tim, get to it. We could have a nice little rally for Bitcoin, get up into the 30s, maybe even to the 40s. I've seen people talk about 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a little too much for this year, but let's just say there's a chance to get to 50, and then the Fed pivots, and it brings with it a traditional dip, a 30% dip. That's a normal part of bull markets. That happens during these little pullbacks. So that's not even the most, it's not even like this weird, unexplainable thing to say, hey, we might get a dip when the Fed pivots, but we might have a killer rally that comes before that pivot, that we are sitting at 40,000, 50,000, and we pull back down towards 30, $10,000 loss, but that's a significant percentage. That's what we see in the stock market traditionally. This is all explainable to still paint a bullish picture, even with what Michael Burry is saying here. Mm-hmm. This is not necessarily this doom and gloom. Uh-oh, guys, Fed pivot, the bottom's dropping out, we're hitting new lows. No, that's just not the case.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got our last and juiciest story here that we'll be diving into, and that is good because our my screen is cooperating with me, and that's excellent. So. Good. Coinbase's CEO cites rumors that the SEC may ban crypto staking for retail customers. There he is, the man with the allegation, Brian Armstrong, who is the CEO of Coinbase. So pretty influential. If anybody has their thumb on the pulse of crypto regulation, it's definitely possibly him. But he said, I hope this is not the case, as I believe it would be a terrible path for the U.S. if that was allowed to happen, he tweeted yesterday, referring, of course, to a ban of crypto staking. And then, he goes on to say the following, and before I get into that, I'll notice a spelling error in Coindesk.com where it said based on efforts of others.
This is the reason why we need Charles to buy them and
That's
fix
right.
these spelling errors.
That's right. And so he went on to, or the article goes on to say, the value of staked assets was about $42 billion in the fourth quarter of 2022, with annualized staking rewards of $3 billion, according to a report by Staked. And then Allison Mangiero, the executive director of the Proof of Stake Alliance, POSA, told CoinDesk that her organization opposes any assertion that staking constitutes an unregistered security. So the association's kind of leaping ahead and making some claims. She said, staking tends to get misconstrued with unrelated activities like lending, but staking is fundamentally a way for anyone to join in providing security for proof of stake networks, Mangiero said. The existence of staking services providers allows everyday Americans to participate in staking, which democratizes network consensus and validation and is core to the fundamental growth of the global decentralized internet. Any regulatory action that runs counter to this misunderstands the nature of staking and hinders America's ongoing efforts to foster democratic technological innovation. She says it pretty well there, Tim. I couldn't have said it better myself. I definitely have compared staking to lending in the past, and in some ways you definitely can. But when it comes to like how the projects use the liquidity for internal investment, but more function, but legally it is different from lending because you're providing liquidity to an exchange in some cases, and so there are definitely fundamental differences, and I'm glad that she points that out. Who knows exactly how aggressive the SEC and other regulatory agencies want to be with banning staking in the U.S. Mm-hmm. So far, this is just a rumor coming from Ben Armstrong,
Brian.
I'm sorry.
Very, very small difference, but very big difference in terms of who the people are.
Absolutely. But it's just a rumor there from Brian. But he's not somebody that you just want to ignore. He's not somebody who would just say something like this out of nowhere, and it wasn't like somebody pinned him down and got him out of context. This is what he was tweeting. So let's zoom out here. How bad could this be? I know it's just a rumor at this point. Let's what's the worst case scenario here, Tim?
Well, and here's another thing that needs to be considered. First of all, Gary Gensler doesn't get to have everything he wants. Boo-hoo, Gary. Also, potentially, is this a great move from Brian to bring it to people's attention so there is some mass rejection of this. There is a lot of feedback, negative feedback of that idea that goes ahead and squashes this in the beginning. It would be even worse if the SEC is working very quietly behind the scenes to get all the regulational stamps they need to ban staking in the United States, and nobody knows about it, and there's no pushback. That could make it a really easy road. Brian releasing this saying, this is a rumor, but this is what I'm understanding Gary's trying to do, bringing it into the light so that people can voice their frustrations, voice their opinions. That's the first level of defense we need to understand. This is good that we have this story out there. It is going to allow people to speak up before Gary can get too far down the line. But even that, there's questions I have about the details of what it would even mean. First of all, is it just staking on exchanges? Like, how is he even going to regulate and prevent people from staking on more decentralized platforms? Then again, there comes the question, all right, if it is regulated in the United States and you can't go do it on a U.S. exchange, could you just, and kind of similar to what a lot of U.S. citizens do with leverage trading, just get a VPN and trade on a foreign exchange? And then just when you're dealing with the taxes, you just report what money you put in, what the profits look like. You pay your taxes just like every other law-abiding citizen, and you just circumvent the United States system for staking. There's a lot of things I want to know more details about what even the severity of this would be, because on one level, it might not even be that significant, but even if it is significant, I'm like, well, that's the thing about crypto and decentralized aspects of it. You can't stop certain things from happening unless you just full out banned it altogether, and then hired millions of law enforcement officers to enforce that regulation. It's just a very I don't see this actually being able to have any type of actual effect. Similar here in the United States, at one point we made alcohol illegal. Guess what happened? Purchases went up. I mean, it was illegal and it was all behind the curtains, but like the abuse of alcohol got even worse. People don't stop doing things just because you make a ridiculous law. They just change the way they do it. Same thing like right now in the drug world. Like, they actually, science has shown, or not science, I don't want to say science, studies have shown in places where there's more legal options for drugs, drug action decreases. But when it's illegal, the drug action increases. Same thing happening here. I hope Gary kind of thinks through this, or anyone who thinks, oh, we need to regulate this better. Regulation and banning are two completely different things. A full-out ban could actually have the adverse effect on Gary if that were to come into play, because I think there's a lot of very passionate people in the crypto space who will make their voices heard, but even if something happens, they have no intentions of stopping their staking protocols. They'll just change how they do it. Yeah,
absolutely. And, it's important. If it was banned, there would be folks who are law-abiding citizens who would they would just cease activity. They would stop staking. But the reality is, guys, is that crypto is still mostly early adopter type people. And early adopter types in technology these days, it's only a couple of keystrokes and a couple of Google searches and a couple of tutorials to find out how to avoid those bans using a VPN. The United States is not China. China has strategically developed their internet infrastructure to be able to be contained. And so VPNs, they still work in China, but it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to get information in and out of their internalized system. Whereas in the United States, that has not been a priority at all. So that has negative effects when it comes to, things that the common person wouldn't want transmitted over the internet. And I'm not going to, we don't need to get into that. There are negative outcomes of all freedoms, right? There are negative potentials from all freedoms, but it also opens the door to good freedoms. And staking, if you wanted to stake in an El Salvador staking pool, you'd be able to do that, right? You'd still be able to do that with our internet infrastructure. So I think at this point, I'm glad, like what you said, Brian Armstrong bringing this point up. And if you agree, definitely leave a like that if you think that it was a good idea for Brian Armstrong that he heard.
Put a one in chat if you're glad that Brian did this. I don't know why you wouldn't put a one in chat, but go ahead and just put a one in chat if you think that.
Yeah, and definitely like the video, but it's way better to know than not know. And I also wonder how many rumors does Brian hear on a monthly basis that he doesn't tweet out, and why did he choose this one? But I think more than likely he tweeted this out because there are some people that are in positions to where they could change the outcome and influence the outcome, and so that's why he chose to pull the trigger on on kind of publishing this rumor, but I think it's a very low chance, just on the ground, retail investors like you and me, I think it's a very low chance that the SEC would ban staking, especially for, and if they did, I don't think that they would ban it for Ethereum. Why do I say that? I think there's a lot of very powerful people who bought Ethereum. I think there's a lot of people who bought Bitcoin. And then on down the line, it becomes less and less and less. I think Cardano is owned by the people a lot more. I don't think there's as many super powerful folks who are in Cardano, although there's no way I could know that. But I am almost certain that there's way more in Ethereum. And by powerful, I'm talking about senators, congressmen, and directors of major government agencies and giant nonprofits and things like that. Giant corporations, certainly, especially in the tech sector. So I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think they're going to ban staking because there's too much interest at work there. But I'm glad that Brian brought it to our attention, and I'm sure that the folks that really needed to hear that are hopping to making sure that it doesn't get banned.
Absolutely. Well, hey guys, it is getting up. We got like less than a minute here until 10 o'clock. Go ahead and smash that like button if you have not already. Thank you to everybody watching. We all have almost 130 people watching right now. Only have 89 likes, though. Those four-figure mittens need some more clicks. Go ahead and smash that on the way out. Just updating you guys. Share my screen real quick, T-Shroom. You guys are more than welcome if you have some technical analysis you want to do. If you have TradingView and you want to steal this, this is not plagiarism. Go ahead and draw this line. This is going to be very important. What we're looking at right now, yes, we have some wicks back above, but this former support level that was touched 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times as support is slowly but surely being turned into resistance. This is important. If we stay below this, there's a chance we end up dropping a good bit lower when we get that breakout. But if we can reclaim it, that'll just give us some more bullish action. Definitely going to be keeping our eyes on this level of support. Also, now you can go off my screen here. We had a poll earlier in chat. We're going to go ahead and close it out. But it was, how are you guys doing today? Are you better than you deserve? Or are you doing all right? 55% said better than they deserve. For anyone who doesn't know, there's a little bit of an inside joke there. You got to watch the beginning of the show if you want to be included on that one. But that is all we have for you guys in today's show. Thank you to everyone for joining us. If you want to spend more time with us, you absolutely can go join our Discord. Someone asked earlier, they said the link wasn't working, so I went and fixed it. We have a free version that we chat and have cover all these different things. We also have a Patreon and a paid version with a lot more access to T-Shroom and myself. We have some private channels. We have some private things going on, like today's 3 o'clock AMA for our gold and diamond members. If you're interested and you really want to do that, make sure you go check out our description. There's links for both the Discord, the free option, and Patreon. Make sure you go join today and join this very fast growing, amazing crypto community. We love all of you guys. Hope you have a fantastic day, and we will see you tomorrow for the last show of this week. Have a great day.